draft season.
A main event team on FFPC, $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the GOAT District High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Tonight we have a monster show. Mike Schopp joins us to talk must-draft players and the AFC Draft Trends you cannot miss. We're hitting Buffalo Bills Fantasy Outlook. Is Ray Davis one of the best handcuff values out there right now? And 7 AFC offenses that could swing your fantasy season. Make sure you're locked in, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and jump into the live chat. We want your takes and questions. You know what time it is. Let's get.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, guys? Welcome back. We are back to back tonight with the Mike Schopp. I counted back, Mike, and I'm pretty sure you've been on 6 times. This is your 7th time, and wow. I didn't count the times that you've been on with me since I've been back. So you're actually like, this is 8 or 9 now that you're back. If you guys don't know Mike, he's the voice of the Buffalo Bills, WGR 550, south of the border in Buffalo. You know him from ADP chasing. He's the slappy conductor down out there in the ship chasing world. Mike, we're pumped to have you on tonight. Welcome back to the district, brother.
Am I the Alec Baldwin of this show, or the Paul Simon, or the Tom Hanks, or do I get a robe?
We're showing our age. We're showing our age there, Mike, with those names. Come on.
I'll show you mine. I mean, look at me. Nothing to hide.
Never mind. You and Dan were whipping them out before we came out live with between all the autographed Baylor helmets.
Baylor. And it's stolen valor when it comes to me. My wife went to Baylor. I mean, she won lots of awards, but they weren't my awards. I mean, Dan is more authentic than I am in this. I have a shirt, but anybody can buy these.
Yeah, I'm more authentic, but I don't know. Baylor didn't give me any awards other than a diploma, and said, "Thanks for showing up. Please don't come back." So,
well, tomato.
That's right.
Well, we're glad that Mike is back. We have a huge show tonight. We're on the back of a monster episode last night with Abib but oh man, I knew I was going to mess it up.
Agbatoba.
I did it so well yesterday, and if I don't have it in front of me, I just can never remember it. He's the back-to-back champ, man. You guys know him. Abib Skywalker 2000 on the X Machine. We talked all NFC. We did a deep dive on his team, the Houston Texans. Tonight, we're going to dive deep into the Buffalo Bills with Mike, and we're going to talk some AFC draft targets and some draft trends that you guys cannot miss. So make sure you tune in for the whole thing. Make sure you're locked in. Smash that like button, and let's get right into it. Mike, last year, I mean, when you look at the rookie class that came in, you had those kind of that top tier of receivers. You had the Odunzes, the Worthies, you know, the what's the other guy?
Neighbors.
Like AD Mitchell. Yeah, that whole crew. But they kind of disappointed, right? Like they didn't necessarily live up to where they were going ADP wise. Apart from Tet McMillan, do we need to be drafting these rookie receivers this year in our builds? Do we need to sprinkle them in? Is it a must, or do you think that there's different ways that we can go based on your experience on the ADP chasing and what you're seeing out there in the high stakes and draft rooms?
I think there are especially two interesting names that are not like the deep dive names. One has got to be Travis Hunter, and plant your flag. He might be the best rookie receiver, period, or in years. Like, who knows? Thomas is there, but the athletic talent is also there when it comes to Hunter. And if they're efficient and competent offensively, that could be really exciting. I know there's the risk that he plays mostly on defense, but you can definitely, it's the 5th round. You can pay that price for, if you start with 2-3 receivers and then there's Travis Hunter, I think you got to do it. And right now, the most interesting movable rookie receiver has got to be Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State in Tampa, with Godwin still hurt, and he's got to be one of the most heavily complimented rookies in the league this year so far. They can't say enough. Mike Evans took his turn today talking about how professional and mature this guy is. It was weird when they picked him because they had Evans, Godwin, even McMillan, but what they said was they're leaning into their strength. And Godwin isn't ready yet, and Evans is close to ancient, as good as he's been. So Egbuka is, shooting up draft boards, and he's one where I want to hope that people watching have already been drafting him a lot. I can't say that I have, but right now I'm trying to sort of sneak my way into Egbuka shares.
Yeah, I know Dan was really talking Egbuka up last night. Anything to add, Dan, before we jump to the running back situation and drafts?
Yeah, he's been a guy I've been pounding the table for a month or so, and I like everything about him. I like the situation. Even in Tampa, let's say Godwin and Evans are healthy to start the season. They still run 11 personnel well over 70% of the time, and so there's still room for him to get out there and get targets. And everybody, there's been such a positive drumbeat. As Mike was talking about him coming from, basically every layer of the team. This isn't just, fans, writing puff pieces or anything like that. This is his actual coaches and teammates saying, yeah, this guy gets it. So I love seeing that. I'm also, kind of in on Matthew Golden. I like him better in a best ball where I don't have to pick my weeks to start him, but I do think that Green Bay was serious about getting him in and making him a big part of the offense right away. We saw what they did with Christian Watson when he first started out. Before he proved that he couldn't, stay healthy, they were feeding him the ball. And Golden is, I think, every bit as good or better than Watson ever was. So that's a player that I want to be in on as well, and at least have some shares, but. Those are and then Travis Hunter, as Mike mentioned, that's a guy I've been hammering basically ever since the draft. So can't complain about that.
Yeah, Egbuka and Hunter, guys, I definitely need to be clicking on a bit more often for my portfolio this year. Pat Bryant, one of those deep names I really like. We're hearing some good news from him out of Denver, and Trey Harris, I think, just has a wide open opportunity out there in LA. Obviously, we question the amount of volume you're going to see in the passing game, but you got to think that there's some room for him to get a role going this year in 2025. Based on your draft so far, I know you do a few, especially in the FFPC streets, Mike. We've done a few, and we're going to do a couple more before the start of the season together. Are you leaning kind of RB early? Are you going more anchor RB? Are you smashing yellow early? Like, what's your kind of feel in those early rounds when you're building these rosters so far?
I think what happened last year we've talked about this before, maybe, have been a catalyst toward more people betting on the veteran running backs or doing that earlier. And I just want to go the other way. So, no, I'm not making sure I have 3 receivers in the first 4 rounds necessarily, but I'm still kind of at his price off Barkley. Henry only if he falls in one 350 that was on YouTube, the Big Gorilla. It was Henry at 2.9 and then Taylor at 3.4 or something like that. Like I did that, but really I'd rather not. I think the receivers you can get mid to late first, early to mid second are great. You can sometimes get, not so much at FFPC, but you can get sometimes a tight end there. I don't feel like I need that running back. And then guys like Kyron Williams and honestly mostly Jacobs, I'm sort of not ever picking. I'd rather get Breece Hall later, or Omarion Hampton now later is happening. Mid to late third or even early third sometimes now. Not in a rush to do that, but I like the elite tight ends too. So if I end up with a Genti or McCaffrey or Achane, fine. But I'm not making a big point to do that.
Anything to add, Dan, with some early? I know we talked a bit about it last night, but do you have anything to add with regards to those earlier rounds and kind of which way you're zigging or zagging?
Yeah, what I've felt this year more is a little bit of freedom, in that there are some wide receivers that I like a little bit further down the board than usual. You know, I've felt like in past years, a lot of times by the time you get to the 6th round, things are really starting to dry up pretty bad at wide receiver, and I'm just not real wild about most of the options after that. Whereas this year, you know, I think into the 7th, 8th round, you know, you're still running some pretty good wide receivers, and then there are some I'll pick and choose even past that I feel pretty decent about. So that gives me the freedom that I don't have to, you know, go, you know, start off with 3 or 4 wide receivers to feel good about my wide receiver room. I can mix in a running back or 2. It just allows me, you know, gives me access to kind of some different builds, and allows me to do a few different things. You know, because that also takes me off some of, you know, when I do a couple earlier running backs, it takes me off some of those later running backs I'm pounding when I'm going heavy on wide receiver. So, you know, it just allows me to kind of mix up my builds a little bit, get a little bit more, you know, broad as far as like what my, you know, my portfolio is. So I'm always about trying to get different builds going, because usually there's one build or 2 builds that really are the ones that are kind of the key to the year. And if you're shut out on those, that's not a great place to be.
Totally. You want to mix up your builds. You want to mix up your ownership. Obviously, you lean into guys that you think are going to do better than others, you know, to have a higher percentage in your bags. But you want to mix it up so that you're not necessarily, you know, continuously drafting the same players, the same types of build. Like you said, Dan, you never know which one's going to hit when it comes to the players or the types of builds, right? Looking at tight end, obviously you've got the top 3, right, with Bowers, McBride, and Kittle. How are you approaching that position this year, Mike? It's fairly deep, so again, it does allow for that variety. Do you have a specific way or a way that you're finding that you prefer?
Well, what's happened so far, and in my defense, we're still in July, but my top 2 underdog tight ends by ownership are McBride 1 and Bowers 2. So I guess that says a lot about what I'm trying to do there. I feel like I'm short on Kittle, but I do think there's a lot to be said for the mid to late tight ends. And as long as I haven't hamstrung myself with, I mean, it's never going to be 2 of those guys, but 1, the dilemma that I find sometimes at tight end, JD, is like I'm in round 10 or 11 or 12 and I want Tucker Kraft or I want Prescott. Maybe I'm picking at a turn, or Ferguson rather, and I'm at a turn where I could get Prescott or Love or whatever other, Trevor Lawrence, Brenton Strange, something like that. But I feel maybe like I've already invested too much in tight end, so I'm going to slow down on McBride and Bowers. I've already done a lot of that, but I think that that's fine. I mean, getting Bowers at 207 on underdog, or, you know, McBride at the 1-2 turn in FFPC seems like great value to me.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And Mike, I was kind of in the same place as you, going really heavy on Bowers and McBride early. And like you, I kind of found myself slacking off on that a little bit for pretty much the same reasons. I felt like I needed to start changing up my builds. And again, this just kind of gave me some access to, different things, because now I can really be free to go running back and wide receiver heavy. I've also been kind of pushing back quarterback a lot more lately as well. And so with quarterback and tight end being pushed back, I mean, I could spend 10 rounds pretty easily just hitting wide receivers and running backs, and then come back around to quarterback and tight end, and then get, like a pair of quarterbacks, and then, maybe 2 tight ends pretty soon after the 10th round, and then 1 late, something like that, and still feel real good about those positions. And I can still go back and hammer a couple more wide receivers or running backs as I feel I need. But having those, like those first 10 picks all be green and yellow, I mean, it makes you feel pretty good about those running back and wide receiver rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm never mad at my team when I go yellow, green early. Stacks this year, I'm trying to think. I think it was Harry Snowman earlier today was kind of commenting to me how he was in a draft and people were just picking each other off, like kind of sniping each other off instead of building their own stacks. How do you feel about paying attention to your roster, or do you ever, look at the rosters around you or the drafters around you in a draft room when you're looking at maybe who they're trying to stack, or how does that fit in? And do you think people are maybe sometimes too aggressive when it comes to stacking?
Well, I definitely say yes to that last question. I think it's right to look at what's around you to try to anticipate what could happen. Like, I love picking at the 2 or the 11 so I can evaluate or even the 3 and the 10, like what's behind me and what are the odds that a tight end or a quarterback should go there. But I'm honestly, just between us, never going to pick somebody that doesn't help me win a tournament. Like, that doesn't ever, I'd love to be in a poker game and then sort of bluff it if I can, but you can't really do that. You're just on your phone. So stacks, I have found, and I'm not sure I can sort of articulate this, but I think stacking is harder this year than it's ever been. I mean, some of the big ones, you can get to the Hurts stack, or obviously Burrow with Chase or Higgins, or the correlation in Week 17. That's pretty easy. It's almost like too easy. Allen is trickier, but man, like, it really does take some chess skills once you get down the line a little bit at quarterback to figure that out. I think what a lot of us are doing, JD, is drafting, Justin Fields or Drake May or even like Herbert, and then trying to figure it out after that. Cam Ward, even if it gets super late. I mean, I think the whole quarterback, pod is in the middle. You have a few at the top, and then you have the stragglers at the bottom. Then you have like rounds 9, 10, 11 where maybe a dozen go. And that's a little bit uncomfortable. So I think, one trap that people can fall into is, well, ADP is this or that. I don't want to be drafting a quarterback now. Then it goes down and back around, and then you're dead. It feels like in those middle rounds, you better be willing to, quote, reach on somebody, or else you can really get stuck.
Yeah, there's definitely some quarterbacks where you either have to have the piece already when you draft them, or you're drafting them hoping you can hit that piece later without having to reach. Where are you at, Dan, with what you're seeing in the room stack-wise? And I know you and I have discussed this already. We don't necessarily pay too much attention to our opponents unless, like Mike said, we're on closer to the ends and we want to know what has a higher chance of making it back to us. But do you see mistakes in either one of those aspects of drafting these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can be too aggressive on stacking. When you start reaching too much, it just doesn't make sense to me. Something within a round or so, I don't mind that kind of a reach. But when you start reaching a couple rounds or something like that to make sure that you're, getting what you need for a stack, I think you're leaving value on the table, and that's really not what you want to do, because, we're just guessing as to which of these stacks are going to end up mattering, and so it's like you're making this reach where you're making a suboptimal decision, and yet you don't even know if it's going to end up mattering or not if you do get that stack that you wanted. Maybe that stack just doesn't pay off for whatever reason. Maybe the team is terrible. Maybe they just have a bad game the week that you thought they were going to have a good game. Whatever it is. You just have no certainty on that. So I think that people just trying to be a little bit too certain about how they can predict the future. I'm just not that kind of guy. I've been humbled many times in this game. I know I can't predict the future. All I can do is try to be a little bit less wrong than everybody else. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm never gonna really mess with somebody else's stack just for the fun of messing with it. I mean, the player has to make sense for my team. If it doesn't, then I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I think other than that on stacking, I just I will push players more than I will reach, I guess is what I would say. Like Bradley and I, when we did the Pros versus Joes on Sunday night, we intentionally pushed J.J. McCarthy, even though we already had Justin Jefferson and Hockenson, and we're like, well, we could take McCarthy here early, or we can see if we can push him around and he lasts until later. And we're looking at everybody else, and it was like nobody at that end of the board who really had any Minnesota players. So we're like, well, if somebody takes him, they're going to take him uncorrelated. So let's just take the chance. And we were sweating bullets the whole time, but he did make it back to us. So that was a lot of fun. It's always more fun when that happens.
That's really interesting. That's one of my favorite things to analyze about these drafts, Dan, is is it a bad bet for somebody else to do it? And when you're in a draft like that, it's pretty much experts. So they know this point. Like, they're not going to draft somebody. It's also not even a tournament, pros versus Joes. Like, you're just trying to win your league, and why do I need J.J. McCarthy unless I have maybe Addison? But you can evaluate that. Yeah, I mean, that's the happiest maybe I've been in the bigger drafts so far this year is when that happens to me, where I'm just pushing quarterback and I get away with it, which JD means, like, that means you're not drafting FFPC high stakes redraft. You can't, once you draft Allen, Jackson, Daniels, Hurts, you're done. I mean, you can't pick the second one, and that can work. But that's its own conversation. Yeah,
especially the big tournament, like the redrafts, the mains, and the big gorilla. Obviously, it's you can get away with it. You don't even need a second one because you can just wait for waivers. If you really want to fill in that buy or deal with a second one on the other bench. Mike, your voice kind of, when you came back on, it kind of faded a bit. I don't know if something changed. I'm going to go to a quick word from our friends over at the FFPC. I'll give you a chance to leave and come back. Give me 1 second. We'll be right back.
Leave?
Yeah, if you can just exit, and then I'll let you back in, and then your voice, I feel like we'll probably get back, yeah. All right, guys, make sure you're using the draft or the promo code DRBALLER, DRBALLER. Get yourself $25 off your first team at myffpc.com, whether you're drafting best ball, dynasty, redraft, big tournament, money, or just a $5 league. They have everything you need on the site. Mike, give me a quick test.
Test.
There it is. You're back. I can feel, I've got that deep voice back in my ear. And now you're back. Let's go to your Buffalo Bills. Obviously, being in Buffalo, you have that insight. Keon Coleman is someone that I feel like Fantasyland is getting a little excited about. I've seen some positive things coming out of camp. Year 2. Do we have a wide receiver 1 breakout potential here with Keon Coleman? Or what are your feelings on the second-year receiver out there in Buffalo?
I think the ceiling is pretty high. And I think the floor is also pretty high, so I think drafting Coleman is fine. I mean, I just don't know what the real-life potential is for this player. The separation problems, and the Bills, I think, have miscast him so far, wanting him to play on the outside, and most people that I look up to in this sort of realm talk about him as a big slot. So I think the role is a little bit strange. I think the player has limitations. Athletically, he's great. And I think the philosophy of the Bills is to get a lot of people involved. And now we have Joshua Palmer and, of course, the 2 tight ends and whatever else they're going to do. Elijah Moore even maybe. So I think for me and Kincaid, the 2 tight ends, for me, Coleman is a pick I make when I have Allen. And if I don't have Allen, I'm out.
Yeah, you almost don't mind naked Allen, right, Dan, for that reason? Like, if you do miss on some of those stacks just because of how strong he is as an individual fantasy player, and how in the past we've seen him just kind of spread the ball around, as they say. What are your thoughts on Keon this year, Dan?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think that he's got a decent ceiling, but the floor could be pretty much 0 on any given week. So just due to all the pass catchers there are, and as far as Josh Allen goes, you're right that you don't really need to stack anybody with Josh Allen. But on the other hand, the nice thing about all those weapons that he has is that it's real easy and cheap to stack at least somebody with him. So typically, when I take Allen, that's what I find myself doing is I'm going to at least stack somebody. I'm not going to sit there and try to force, getting Shakir or something like that. But, I don't mind going down the target tree a little bit and, picking up one of the late round guys. And, if that happens to hit on one of the final weeks, then that's probably going to be a little bit more lately owned.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, James Cook coming up fresh off of 18 touchdown, had a monster season, especially in the red zone. Is he the clear RB1 still? Like, what are you hearing with regards to, obviously, the contract situation? And is Ray Davis one of the best handcuffs right now in those early digit rounds? He gave us, 150-plus yards that one game last year. So we've seen glimpse of what he can do.
And Davis had maybe, 6 touchdowns himself? Or
Yes.
is that too high?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
he's a nice handcuff for sure. I don't expect anything to be different with Cook role-wise this year. I'm admittedly surprised that there isn't a sort of a compromise new deal with him. It's possibly because he would just not come down from a very lofty number, or it's because the Bills just do not want to sign a running back to an extension. I don't know. But it didn't happen. He showed up for the mandatory minicamp. He showed up for this. By the way, great job, James Cook, with the eyeball emojis and the whole thing in the offseason, about $15 million. Way to work that. Just like, oh, actually, I was just kidding. JK, I'm here. I don't know. So he played something like 45% of the snaps last year. Ty Johnson got banged up a little bit at training camp practice today, but if he's healthy, he is their 3rd down back, and that really caps Cook. So on the pro side, you're only paying, 3-4 turn prices for him. But I mean, the touchdown regression point is obvious, and I doubt he ends up more efficient. Really, a lot of his numbers 2 years ago were as good or better than last year, except for the touchdowns. So I'm not drafting him, really.
Yeah, he's a full fade for me. I don't think I have a single share, just based on the fact that he is in that last year. It's pretty clear that Buffalo and him aren't seeing eye to eye on a contract, so I don't think it's going to happen. About all you can hope for is that they're just going to say, well, this is our last year with him, and we're just going to use him a ton. But I think, Buffalo is probably more likely to say, hey, we want him fresh for the playoffs too. And also we want to see a little bit more of what we got in Ray Davis, so we know what we need to do in the running back room for next year if we're not signing Cook. So I think Davis is going to get probably even a little bit more standalone value at this point. Some of that's going to come at the expense of Cook. And, I think you're probably right, Mike, and I'll definitely follow your lead on it because you're way closer to the team than me. But Ty Johnson is that 3rd down back. I just don't see him not being in that role unless he's hurt.
I mean, Allen called him the best 3rd down running back in the NFL. So yeah. I feel like that's probably wrong, but also that's their plan, and he's going to dictate a lot of what they end up doing.
Alex P. Keaton with one share of James Cook and one regret to go along with it. Secondary weapons, Mike, you've got Kincaid, who disappointed a bit last year. Maybe it was the injuries, maybe it wasn't. You've got Shakir coming off of obviously a nice little contract that he got this offseason. What are your thoughts on these secondary pieces? And is there kind of like a late round Bills stash that, you know, our audience should be looking at when they're drafting?
That's really tough. I mean, the Bills are skill position wise pretty much pushed down already. So if you want Shakir or Kincaid or even Coleman, like, you can do that, but it's not the late rounds, it's the middle rounds. And again, that for me depends on whether I have Allen, because if I don't, maybe if I have Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown, I might want one correlation piece from Buffalo. I think late, other than Davis, who's kind of also in that same range as a running back, it's pretty scant. You know, it's Elijah Moore. He's the one guy, if you wanted to bet on Elijah Moore. I feel like the tough thing with him, JD, is like Curtis Samuel is a tough contract to crack. And Moore is an exciting idea. Everybody in fantasy sort of has a crush on him, but he has no contract leverage over Samuel. So maybe Samuel's the answer to this. Somebody that later on, if he stays healthy, could produce. Late last season, he started to do that a little bit in the playoffs too, but it was not something consistent. And I don't know. I don't love any of it.
I noticed earlier today, Dan Palmer moving up ADPs a bit. Where are you on kind of these secondary and later Bills pieces?
Proud Canadian.
Proud Canadian.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Toronto.
Between my two Canadian cousins over here.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, in a real football sense, I'm very envious of what the Bills have, because they've got a super deep stable of receivers, you know, that can just keep coming at you no matter what. So, you know, if some injuries happen or whatever, I don't see a whole lot of a drop-off because of the depth that they have. But that makes it really unfortunate for fantasy, because it's so hard to predict week to week. You know, I find the Bills easier to click in best ball leagues where I don't have to pick those weeks where they're going to be, you know, really good, than in standard, you know, redraft leagues where I'm going to have I'm never going to feel good about putting even Josh Palmer in my starting lineup, you know, or Ray Davis, right, or anybody like that. So It's just kind of a tough thing for redraft, but works out a little bit better for best ball. So that's where I have a lot more of my Bills exposure is there.
Other than Cook and, of course, Allen, there's nobody you want to start week one in the main event. Like, who would it be? It's just like, and this happened last year, not even Kincaid. Last year, probably in the main, we were starting Kincaid for a while, and it didn't happen. So, I don't know. Like, it's a weird team like that.
And does that maybe tell us that Keon Coleman has to step up for this team to take the next step? Because maybe that's the problem. Maybe they have not necessarily had, you know, Diggs is gone. They haven't had that guy kind of step in and, you know, behind Allen and obviously what we've seen from Cook. So maybe that's the key to them moving a bit further into the playoffs, to the promised land.
At WGR, we've been right in the cauldron because we're mostly like-minded as hosts about receiver importance, and the Bills have pretty much shunned it post trading for Diggs, and that came to a head the morning after the draft, or I guess Monday morning. The draft ends on Saturday this year, where the general manager of the team was scheduled to be on our morning show, and he just flipped. You know, he flipped out. He's like, I'm so sick of hearing about how we don't invest in wide receiver. And we're all sort of taken aback as listeners or as hosts, you know, like, what is happening right now? And the same week, he did a media tour that week. He's at McAfee, and Tyler Dunn had him. And the paraphrasing, not that much, I think the key quote was Brandon Beane saying, how can anybody accuse us of not investing at wide receiver? I signed Joshua Palmer. And like, oh, okay, well, now we have it. You know, here are the Bills. Will it work? Last year, they set a literal franchise record in points. They passed for 30 touchdowns, and they ran for 30 touchdowns. Look that up. Like, that never happens. So they think it's working great. When they made the coordinator move in 2023 at 6-6 to Joe Brady, they kind of ran the table at that point. They lost in the playoffs, of course. And then last year, I was saying like I wasn't heavily invested in Cook because I didn't think he would get the workload or the touchdowns, but whoops. And, they were the same team. 6 offensive linemen. They became a bully. And Allen is a huge percentage of what that is in reality. Like, it's 3rd and 6, and he's just going to run over you. And it's first down. It's like not even fair. You can have the perfect play call on defense, and you'll still lose. So, I mean, how much is strategy really worth when you have a player like this? I don't know. I don't think any of this is really good for fantasy. I mean, I think Cook is not too expensive. You can do that, but 16 touchdowns on the ground. Oh, my God, he had 2 the year before, playing just as often and running for the same amount of yards. I feel like I could get burned. I've been getting burned for years by this team because I just haven't believed in some of the philosophical stuff. But I'm right back in on like sort of fading most of these guys.
I keep forgetting, Mike. You and I are brothers in a lot of ways. We're both nearly Canadian. We got the
Capital N, capital C.
We both have the Baylor connection, and we both have teams that have absolutely just shot themselves in the foot every year in the playoffs. So there is
Minnesota.
The Schadenfreude there is it's very palpable.
Well, Dan, I mean, this is literally a Super Bowl MVP collection. There are 2 teams you don't see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
you
you
don't
might
see
be on to
Buffalo or
something
Minnesota.
there, Mike.
I don't have those
you might
teams.
be on to something.
All right.
Change. That would be a great Super Bowl this year, and they both could make it.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, the Super Bowl that somebody has to.
Can you
win.
imagine?
I mean,
We'll have to repost that. I'll have to clip that and repost it if that's the
how many
Super Bowl.
overtimes will it take?
Yeah.
It'll end in a shootout, probably.
Right. No, it'll be like the Super Bowl where the lights went out. The lights will just go dark in the middle of the second half, and that'll be it.
And they won't be able to fix it.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Let's get to the next segment, boys. So let's talk AFC. Last night we smashed the NFC with Abib. Make sure you guys check that out if you haven't. Back-to-back champ. We did a deep dive. We're going to deep dive into the AFC. And, I mean, one team that is almost completely different. I mean, one of the only consistents, I guess you could say, or consistencies is the coach, Mike Tomlin. But Pittsburgh brings in Rodgers. I mean, they kind of dragged it, and eventually he came in, but they eventually got him there with him and his new mystery wife, which I was reading about today, which I think is hilarious. And then you've got Jonnu Smith coming in after his spike season in Miami. And they obviously drafted Caleb Johnson. I mean, Jalen Warren is also still there, and Pat Freiermuth. But how do you see this offense shaking out, Mike, and how are you approaching it in your drafts these days?
I think the running backs are both pretty good bets. Caleb Johnson is a rookie in the 6th round. Fine. You're sort of post Harvey and Henderson, a couple other veterans there. Maybe Hampton's long gone. But I think Caleb Johnson works at pick 70 or wherever he goes. And I like Warren. I've always liked Warren because I think he's worth, a fairly important role there. And what's sort of a little bit baffling to me about Pittsburgh is that I this year weirdly really like Metcalf. I just think like Rodgers does not see himself as a joke. And for all the Arthur Smith running the ball stuff, I mean, Metcalf is such an alpha that I kind of, especially in best ball, I can see big plays from those two. I can see maybe Metcalf becoming not Devontae Adams in his prime at Green Bay. Like, that's not in the range of outcomes. But I get excited to draft Metcalf, especially in round 5. So, I don't know. I feel a little bit sheepish about that because a lot of the cool people aren't pimping DK Metcalf, but I like it.
Not necessarily a bad thing. And you don't have to go to that. You don't even have to go to Green Bay, Mike. We saw it last season. in New York. We saw Adams put up some decent points, even down the stretch when the team wasn't doing much. He was getting peppered then. How are you feeling about the Steelers this year? I like the take on the running backs for sure, because that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, the one thing is with Arthur Smith, they're going to both be involved. This is going to be a committee, and short of an injury, that's not going to change. So, and I
Right.
don't think that there's any way Caleb can take over the job, because I think Jalen Warren is so good in pass protection, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be insistent that he have good pass protection. I mean, that's the one thing that has happened with Rodgers over the past few years is he's gotten more and more skittish when he's back in the pocket. He just does not like to have a lot of action going on around him. So, he wants that clean pocket, and Warren's going to be able to give it to him. So I think that's going to be the big thing. To me, I'm just trying to figure out who is, kind of the second pitch to Metcalf. Are we talking Jonnu Smith? Are we talking, Roman Wilson coming out of nowhere? Are we talking Calvin Austin?
Freiermuth.
Freiermuth. What's going to happen here? Because we've got kind of the immovable force and the irresistible object. We've got Rodgers, who wants to pass the ball like crazy, and we have Smith, who wants to run the ball like crazy. And they say, well, we're going to work it out, but we still don't know exactly what they've done to work that out. And we've never seen a receiver in an Arthur Smith offense get over 124 targets or something like that, which does not bode well for Metcalf. So I'm super conflicted on Metcalf. I'll take him when he falls, but it's like I'm afraid to draft him, but I'm afraid not to draft him too. So
Yeah.
It's just kind of one of those deals.
It might be the zag. He might be the zag, right? Like when everyone else is zigging, and it might be the same with Jonnu. I feel like maybe we're reading that wrong. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
It
I
could
think-
be, yeah.
I think you can do anything you want with that list at the end, as long as it's dirt cheap. But Rodgers loves to throw to his running backs. That could be one or both of those guys. And maybe this isn't you guys, but I'm getting older, and I'm sort of willing to you take it. I'm not trying to win MVPs anymore. I'm trying to not salvage my reputation or legacy, but I'm on the Pittsburgh effing Steelers. I want to win. This team always wins. I was on the Jets for 2 years, and people think I'm some nutcase. Let's just sort of do it right. If Arthur Smith wants to run the ball way more than I'm used to, that's fine. Rodgers always plays slow. He isn't somebody who's trying to push the pace. He just has thrown the ball a lot because he's been great at it. So I feel like it's almost ironically a little bit like the Jets, how I can see the Jets this year, where you have one receiver that's much the best, and you have a team that wants to run it. Nobody should want to run it more than the Jets, and they've got the running backs to do it. And so, okay, fine. I mean, Rodgers is going up against Baltimore twice, and he's got the Bills, he's got the Packers, the NFC North. There are a lot of big and tough games in there. If I can defer to my offense coordinator this time, as long as there's not a political conflict. And would there be any reason to think there is between Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith? I mean, it's big corporate, it's big money. So, I mean, I feel like they could be simpatico this year, and I don't know. That it's a very crooked trail. It's chutes and ladders to get to Metcalf, but I'm finding myself doing it as long as it's not, over ADP.
You might be right, even especially with the new wife, man. Maybe his ego has kind of gotten in check.
Who is the new wife?
After last season, I don't know.
You're reading about it.
I just saw this quote today about him talking about how happy he is with his new wife, but she's like a mystery wife. Nobody knows who it is,
Oh, that's what I would say too.
Yep.
I love her. It's going
you're
great.
wondering about us getting old, Mike. I don't know if you see the grays here. I'm almost 50 next week, so we're getting there.
Wow.
I'm not turning 50. I'm almost 50 next week. But let's
You're
go
turning
to
49 next week.
48. So let's go to the Chiefs.
Why rush it?
Kansas City's an interesting one. Obviously, you've got the Rice suspension looming. We don't know, is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 4 or 6 with regards to suspensions? If you have anything to add with regards to that, what you think it is, definitely drop that in your response. Xavier Worthy's still in the mix. He's dealing with a little something right now, but nothing too serious from what I understand. Who do you see emerging as the top target? Is it like, I feel like most fantasy land thinks it's Rice. I'm a big Worthy guy, but I feel like it might be a little more split down the middle than people think. And then what are you feeling about the next layer? Kind of like what we talked about Buffalo. After that, you've got some pieces. Brashad Smith getting hype right now. We haven't seen the Royals hype, but I'm sure that's coming in the next 2 to 3 weeks. What are you feeling about kind of secondary pieces behind, like obviously the 2 receivers and even Kelsey? Because I feel like as much as he's getting older, he's kind of a given as well in that offense.
Yeah. I can keep this short. I think Smith and Royals are fine toward the end. I mean, there's definitely a path. I think Kelsey is fine where he goes, because that's still going to be a ton of targets. He's not retired. What is he going to do? Just quit in the middle of the season? No. He'll play. They'll probably win their division. They'll be in the playoffs. He'll be relevant. I think Worthy has super high upside. I like his ADP more than I like Rice's. Rice needs to come down. They need to announce that, so then people will adjust.
I'm so with you.
Then you can get Rice in round 5 or 6 instead of round
so with you.
4.
Yep.
And I think Pacheco is the sneaky one when it comes to Kansas City, because he probably starts week 1. He's a year off an injury, and maybe there's offensive line is better. Teams are still going to play the too high safety dance with Kansas City, and then maybe there's like some upside for Pacheco.
Contract
so I think
year.
if there's a value on the Chiefs, it might be him. I don't think it's really anyone else except maybe Worthy. But will Worthy get enough games without Rice to perform underneath? I think that could still be Kelsey. Their schedule is pretty brutal early, too. Let's see. Chargers, Eagles, Giants, Baltimore, somebody Detroit, somebody Washington, Buffalo. Don't love that. But, yeah, I think Pacheco is maybe the one guy where you might be able to find some value. And then, again, at the end, do what you want with Smith or Royals.
One of the best zero RB pieces right there, Dan, and Pacheco, where he's going in drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I do have questions about, how high is the upside for him, but the floor is definitely super safe. I'm not too worried about Eli Mitchell. I'm not too worried about Kareem Hunt. Mitchell is just so injury prone, and Hunt is so dusty. That it kind of seems like it's probably going to be Pacheco as long as he's healthy, and then Brashad Smith kind of getting into that Jerick McKinnon role, which I would love to see. I'm really high on Worthy. I think the thing I like best about Worthy is that he does have multiple ways to win, because he can inhabit that Rashee Rice role. He can also inhabit that Hollywood Brown role, and he can take that Kadarius Toney role a little bit. I mean, laugh as we want about that, but they hired Toney to kind of do some of the stuff that Tyreek Hill was doing, and also he's fast enough, and if he and Mahomes get their act together like on the deep passes like they did towards the end of the season and in the playoffs, if that continues, I mean, he could be unlocking Tyreek Hill Part 2 right
now.
there.
You're talking.
And
Dan.
if that happens, then all bets are off. Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling.
He's a first-round pick next year.
That's what I'm feeling. No, but that's what
absolutely.
I feel. That's how I feel. People forget this kid's 22, man. And what he did last year, okay, there were other pieces that weren't there, but they were playing in some big games, man. And he came through. He made catches that we didn't see him do earlier in the season. He was in positions, and he was clutch, man. He was clutch when he needed to be. So I just think that Rice being out, especially early in the season, if he gets, 3, 4, maybe even more games, I think that really opens it up. And that's kind of what I see, Dan, is that Worthy. And that's why I agree with Mike with regards to when I see Worthy going after Rice in drafts, for me, I'm smashing that button. It's like a no-brainer for me, because I just don't see it, especially if he's going to miss a few games. I get we've seen it from Rice, but Worthy wasn't the Worthy that I saw at the end of last season when Rice was on the field. That's what people, I think, are not necessarily realizing as well when you're talking about the Chiefs. So I think it's definitely an interesting situation. Let's go to Baltimore. I think Zay Flowers has shown flashes, and maybe it's the nature of that offense. He's one of the lowest wide receiver ones, like quote unquote, on his offense when you look at where he's going ADP wise right now. Is he undervalued, Mike? Is he a guy that you target? I hear a lot of kind of like, oh, he's not a guy I'm drafting, or when I hear different people talking about it. How do you feel about Zay Flowers out there in Baltimore in that, running offense?
Love the team. I think the value is pretty fine. What does he pick? 52, something like that. And it depends on where I'm at. I mean, Dan, literally like by early fifth, it can vary where I've taken maybe at a turn I'm taking Jamison Williams, and then I'll take Flowers because I don't want Jamison Williams and Hunter, right? Because they're both a little bit too risky. So Flowers for me is about the floor. The team is so good, and you can trust the player, the team, the whole rubric of the Ravens, but he's somebody that I only take in specific circumstances. Like if I need a little bit more safety, or if I have Lamar Jackson, which you can do that too. Sometimes like mid-third, mid-fifth, or even like crunch that together a little bit. I don't think Flowers is a big value where he's going. I think he's okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's been a player that I've had trouble clicking on as well, just because of the fact of who's going around him. It's an awfully easy click to take Cortland Sutton. For me, it's an easy click to take Hawkinson. Calvin Ridley, another easy click there. Travis Hunter, as you mentioned, another easy click. Waddle, another one there. It's just basically this is a very low volume passing offense. And they use the tight end so heavily, and you're not looking at Zay Flowers as being a huge end zone target either. He's going to get some looks in the end zone, but that is definitely Mark Andrews' territory. So it's kind of like you see how he can easily be a wide receiver too, but I have a tough time seeing the path to being a wide receiver one. And at that point in the draft, I'm still trying to wide receiver ones that are going to come out of this range of the draft. Tough pick for me.
Yeah, and let's not forget a rookie that I really liked coming into the league and then dealt with injuries is Bateman, right? And he kind of took the next level last season, or the next step, not the next level, but the next step in that offense. So
he's good.
If he keeps ascending, and like we said, there's only so many targets to go around with the way that offense kind of runs. Let's go to LA with the Chargers. We touched on it a bit, obviously talking about the running backs, but one thing I don't hear too much about are the receivers and the tight ends. Obviously they bring in a rookie in Trey Harris. We saw McConkey have a really good, especially back end of last season, and really in the playoffs just smashed. With Conklin, who's the guy that you like, Dan, the rookie tight end?
Gadsden.
That's
Rondé Gadsden.
Rondé Gadsden. So with those three guys, and if there's anyone else I'm missing, by all means throw it in there. But who do you think can become significant for fantasy in that offense for 2025, Mike?
I'm not properly repping ADP chasing if I don't mention Keandre Lambert-Smith at this point.
Yes,
That's what
Slappy,
we do.
There it is.
Over there. Like so, a slappy season. No,
Slappy
he's somebody
season.
that's been apparently impressing at deep routes so far. It's wide open in LA. McConkey, I feel a little bit like he's about as high as he should possibly go in the mid-second. I think he's really good, but I don't think he's got Drake London or AJ Brown upside. And that's
you're drafting him at his ceiling is basically what you're saying.
Kinda, yeah. Hampton has moved up, and that's just an easy one. Najee Harris is Najee Harris, and maybe he has a bad injury. Nobody will really tell us, and that's just better for the rookie. If the rookie's hurt, then Harris is there's the steam because, the rookie will need time to sort of work his way in. But the other way around, he's probably the week one starter, and how many touches is that? They're playing Kansas City. In Brazil, watch out for that field. But they're playing the Chiefs in week one, and I don't know, the Raiders soon after that. It could be a lot for Hampton early, and then we'll feel like we got value if we picked him in round 3. So I think Trey Harris is okay. That for me depends on if you need a receiver at that range, and then I love he's with the Houston guys, and if you're picking at a turn, that's a week 17 matchup, so you can go Harris and Higgins or Harris and Noel, maybe something like that, and get that if you want it. But but it's just sort of like a need pick based on the build at that point for me. Harris and McConkey, I'd rather pick Bowers in the mid-second on underdog at least. Like I think there's just more potential for a huge year.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of McConkey now that I'm thinking about it. And you just gave me like a visual that before I pass to Dan here, I could just picture Harbaugh going to field, check out that field in Brazil and be like, all right, we got to send out one-eyed Harris for this one because that field's a little wonky. Yeah.
We're not playing.
We're not playing. We got one running back that can play this game right now. Dan, how you feeling about the Chargers? Passing game and mostly the passing game with these tight ends and these receivers.
Yeah, I mean, McConkey's the one person you can count on. Can you return value though? That's a really good question. I think they're probably going to, for the most part, run their passing game through McConkey. So, he's kind of Amon-Ra St. Brown would be a little bit my comp for him there, where he's, he's working out of the slot. But they'll also throw him into the X or Z receiver role when they're doing a 12 personnel or something like that. So he's going to stay on the field. Trey Harris certainly looks intriguing. Don't mind taking some shots on him. Tyler Conklin, he's a tight end that I have drafted and used plenty in the past because I am a well-known dumpster diver at tight end, and I've not been too proud to pick him up at certain points of the season and throw him in and use him for a couple 3 weeks, but that's pretty much what he is. And Gadsden, man, there's been a steady drumbeat around him as well, which I really like to hear. He comes with an NFL bloodline, you can paint a strong narrative for Gadsden. What it's going to come down to is, once they quit fooling around here like they, pretty much every team does early in training camp, and they start getting down to the nitty gritty of, hey, this is what we're going to do for the season. How involved is Gadsden going to be at that point? But he's a guy I'm definitely interested in taking late shots on.
Let's go to the Jags. We touched on, obviously, Hunter, so we've got your take there with regards to the passing game. The running back situation is definitely an interesting one with Tank Bigsby getting the hype right now. Etienne was kind of the early offseason hype piece, and obviously Tootin coming in as a rookie was getting hype, but now he's dealing with a bit of an injury. Which one of these three are you feeling is going to be most relevant in fantasy this year, Mike?
Ooh, that's a good question. I wouldn't say ETN. I think ETN, not knowing everything about his contract, should be the number one answer for tradable running back right now, because Tootin athletically is so high end, and Bigsby's getting all the run. Like, why do they need ETN if they can get out? A team like Dallas or Houston maybe wants somebody, and I think ETN could fall into good fantasy value if he goes to the right team and there's a situation. Even the Bears, I don't know, but
Texans.
Yeah, Dallas, Houston, Chicago, a couple others. So I jump on with these guys on every Tuesday morning, ADP chasing. I feel very inferior. My Wi-Fi isn't as good. They're much younger. They know everything about the percentages, and I'm looking at it today. I'm like, I have 41.7% Bashal Tootin, and like, is that a lot? I mean, it's insanely high.
They're like, you slappy.
So I think I'm so slappy on this one. He has to be my answer because everybody told me yes, and then his price went down after camp started because of Bigsby, or I don't know. There were a couple of comments about ETN that were positive. I think Bigsby could work out. A year ago at this time, nobody would listen to a positive take about Tank Bigsby. He was a joke. It was about how he had 5 plays in 2023 and they were all fumbles or tipped interceptions. Like, they were all like a bit. And then now we're all like, oh, well, he's actually good, and maybe he's their number one, and we like the offense, new coach. I guess that's how fantasy goes. But Tootin is my answer. Out on ETN, can get away with it if he's traded. And Bigsby, I'll try to catch up, but he'll rise in value here coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I don't want to pay extra.
Yeah, I think. Well, JD will tell you. I spent most of the rookie draft season for Dynasty trying to convince JD that we needed another Tootin chair. So that was JD was probably tired of me saying his name by then.
No, I was on him. I just didn't want him on every single team that we had. But you clearly did. But you know what? See, I'm also not a Bigsby or a Tank Bigsby guy. So that's why I was kind of also on. And maybe I'm wrong there, but I have to see it, I guess, first.
Dan, you and I are in one together. Do you have Tootin in that league too with the 750, the Rotoviz?
Oh man, I'm not sure because that's one that I'm partnered with Andrew on. So I don't remember whether I got him or not.
Oh, if you're with Andrew, you only have receivers on your team, Dan. That's just all.
Well, I don't, so you probably do, or Austin does.
Austin's got him. Oh, there we go. Yeah,
I don't. You don't. Then probably he does, or Abib. That's my guess, but I'll find out.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm taking a look right now. Looks like looks like Austin's got him. So that was a great call right there. Perfect, Mike. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think ETN's got enough outs that I'm interested in him. I'd like if his ADP would continue to slide back a little bit more. And Bigsby move a little bit more forward. I mean, between Bigsby and Tootin, I'm definitely going to be more team Tootin because I think that the coaching staff and the GM, they're really into him. They really like him. I think that's who they want to win the job. Bigsby's making it hard on him right now, but also Bigsby has just never really me as a receiver, and I think that Tootin is probably the better receiver. So if they end up shipping off ETN somewhere else, then probably Tootin is probably going to have the leg up on that. But it's really hard to say. And with ETN, I really think he was hurt last year. I think he's a better running back than what he showed last year. So I'm willing to give him another chance. He's a guy that if this Tank Bigsby, move keeps going where everybody's into Bigsby and everybody's favorable with ETN, it's going to be where.
No, we lose Dan there.
Yep.
The aliens are taking over your Wi-Fi again, Dan. It's all good. I think you're back. I see your head. Right. Yeah, I think you're back. You're good. You just kind of died at the end there. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting backfield for sure going into the season with Jacksonville. I think also just Liam Cohen coming in the first season. It's going to be interesting to just see that offense as a whole, how it develops, who pops out of that offense. One offense that kind of disappointed last year, and we almost got fooled going into the offseason with the whole jiu-jitsu training that he did, and Tua, getting all his angles right and all this stuff about him. And then, week 2, he's already out for 5 games with concussions. So that's an offense that I've been kind of fading, not completely. Obviously, I have a bit of A-chain. I'll sprinkle in a bit here and there of some of the pieces, but Hill is a guy I find that's hard to click on just because how delicate they are and how delicate they are if Tua is hurt again, and what tells us he won't, so whether you're a big believer in Zach Wilson, I don't know, but for me, that makes me nervous. Mike, which pieces do you feel good about in Miami, if any, and who do you think we should be targeting in these drafts?
The Dolphins for me are a team where if it comes, it comes. I mean, Tyreek Hill in the mid-3rd, great. I'll do it. Waddle in the mid to late 5th, I think it is. I'll do it. HN late, or rather early 2nd. It's a little bit tougher, but I think there's definitely a huge year in there. So I don't want to fade him. But then if it's Hill or Waddle, then I'm into Tua. And there's really no one else. Like Jonnu Smith was great in the big board, but now he's traded. And it's really hard to know with Miami what else to do. So I'm open to it. What's the bull argument? They could have a terrible defense. They could be trailing all the time. not every game they play in will be snowy, and guys are playing for jobs. Head coach, quarterback, Tyreek Hill maybe wants to be somewhere else, but they're all incentivized to put up numbers. It could be a very weird team in that it's all very individualistic, but I'll draft the Dolphins if I get value.
Dan, are drafters chasing what we saw pre-Tua concussions when they're drafting these Dolphins, or are you liking this team's, quietly going into 2025?
Yeah, Tyreek is kind of a weird case because, we're getting a big discount compared to last year where he was one of the, the very first picks of the draft. And now he's going, kind of early third, something like that, depending on your format. And I still have trouble clicking on his name just because of the fact that, a lot of the metrics that he was putting up, everybody's saying, oh, it's his hand, but his hand didn't make him slower. His hand didn't cause a lot of the issues he was having. He clearly looked to be a player in decline in a lot of ways. His speed and his elusiveness and everything else just looked to be in decline, and I don't think that's related to his hand. So that's why I have trouble clicking on him, which I think makes Waddle a more comfortable click for me because of the fact that, if you're gonna fade Tyreek a little bit, then you probably better be in on Waddle. And Achane I really like just because with Jonnu with all his short targets went away. Then you kind of wonder where are those targets coming from. Are you really a Waller believer? I'm not. He's a tough click for me right now. He's a high risk, high reward, I guess, but it's tough to count on him. So I think Achane, if his rushing efficiency comes back to what it was 2 years ago when he was a rookie, that'd be fantastic. If he keeps his pass receiving skills and number of targets and everything that he was getting last year, that's a way that he can also really outperform. And if he does both those things together, then you're talking about Gibbs basically. So I'm definitely in on Achane, definitely in on Waddle, and everybody else. It's kind of I'm not super interested.
I mean, it could be Tyreek's stable of kids that's just weighing him down. Either that or it's either that or 5 policemen. I don't know. But let's go to the Patriots, the last team we're going to focus on before we do a rapid fire here with Mike. Obviously, people are optimistic about Drake May. I know I am. I've got him in especially like Superflex, Triflex teams. He's one of my most owned players. Who are some of your favorite pieces, Mike, in this offense? I know now we're starting to see a bit of, fluff, hype, whatever you want to call it, about Pop Douglas and how he's going to be playing the slot and now he's, the best receiver so far in camp. But where are you with these Patriots going into the season?
I think starting from a point where, does anybody know anybody who's not bullish on May? Like every podcast, every analyst, everybody's in on New England, I think. You could tell me different. So I think after that, per ADP, you could almost spin a wheel. Henderson works, mid-6th. Diggs around the same time works. Kyle Williams, the rookie, works. At value, not going to kill you. Stevenson, even between those two tiers, works. Douglas is fine. Hunter Henry, everybody likes Hunter Henry as a fallback, around 14 or so at tight end, depending on format. And then you can get, cute with Boutte or, there's so many. Polk, Baker, Bourne. There's so many guys down in that range. I think, stacking-wise, you have to avoid, well, you don't have to, but elite quarterback or not, you can get to May, and then you have to be ready to pop in on a couple of those, no pun intended, on a couple of those guys later on. But it's really tough to know what they're going to look like. I don't think they know yet. But, today Javon Baker had a good day. And yesterday it was Douglas. And the day before that it might have been Williams. And really with a team like that could be bad, you just take any shots at it that you can. They might not be bad. On WGR all the time, we'd sort of peek at New England and run down their schedule, and like a record like 8-3 is not crazy for who they play. They have the second easiest schedule in the league, and that's not going to be great for their receiver upside, but they could actually have a good year.
Dan, I like May as my QB2, just like where he falls in that 13th round. Like if you grab like a Burrow or a Hurts and then you don't have to touch QB again, because then you can do that kind of late round double tap at the receiver, and grab Kyle Williams and DeMario or whatever, whichever one that you like. How you feeling about the Patriots?
Yeah, I'm in on Travion Henderson. That kid's got juice, and I think that Josh McDaniels knows how to use a back like him. We've seen it before with Deion Lewis and James White, and on and on and on. And so I think that he is probably going to end up being the much better pick, even though Ramondre Stevenson is going much cheaper. I mean, Ramondre is kind of a guy that if I'm doing some sort of zero running back build, I think he's going to have good to early season value. But by the time we get into the the meat of the season, I think Travion's really going to be starting to take over that backfield a little bit. Just with his speed and juice and pass catching ability. I can see him becoming a really good fantasy player. And then, in the receivers, Diggs is a guy who I also like, especially early in the season, which seems weird to say about somebody who's just coming off an ACL. And I'm like, wow, I like him early in the season. But I'm not sure if Diggs is really built to hold up over a full season anymore. So that gives me a little bit of pause about, really relying on him all the way down through the playoffs. But again, depending if I'm building a mostly younger wide receiver room, throwing Diggs in there for some stability and early season production makes some sense to me as well. Drake May, I think he's a great pick. I'm not over the moon like some people are, but I will definitely take him. I see the paths for him, and he's got the wheels, he's got the arm talent and everything else. So it seems like if he makes progress, he should be, I don't see him going to the, like Jaden Daniels tier or anything like that. But, he could be like a Brock Purdy or something along those lines. So, and that's pretty darn good.
Pop Douglas or Christian Kirk, Dan?
Oh, man. Why you got to do that to me, JD?
This is a selfish question. I'm on the clock. I need to decide. And I've got like a Houston stack going, so it's like, but I just don't know if I want to lean into it with Kirk.
I think if you got the Houston stack going, I'd lean into that and take Kirk. That would be the deciding factor for me. Yeah, just do it. Yeah.
It's not best ball. It's redraft. Just FYI.
Yeah, but even still, I've been hearing some good things about Kirk. It sounds like he's going to be super involved. And if they're struggling with their running game, a lot of short passes and things like that are probably going to be in the mix for Houston as well. So I don't hate that pick.
Mike, you frozen? You look like you might be frozen.
No.
There he goes.
I think he froze.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Wow, Mike doesn't like what I'm saying.
He doesn't like your take. So then we'll go we'll go to the rapid fire. I'll go to you first. Which AFC offense, if any, do you think is mispriced right now in drafts?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think probably the Jets might be a little bit mispriced, just in the fact that I think that everybody thinks it's just going to be, Garrett Wilson, Justin Fields, Breece Hall, and that's it. But, I think there's room for some other players, maybe Mason Taylor, maybe Braylon Allen. But I think that, Aaron Glenn has gotten used to having a good offense on the other side of the ball. And I think, he's not going to be like a lot of defensive coordinators and just getting out there and saying, well, let's just run the ball down their throat 40 times every game and play defense. I think he wants to, he sees the value of being able to run up the score and put the pressure on the opposing offense so his defense can really pin their ears back and rush. So I like them a good bit. It's tough to find anybody else on the AFC side, though, that I think is really, truly undervalued. Maybe Tennessee, but I think mostly Tennessee is going to be a two-person show. It's going to be Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think I think the Steelers could have a chance to be right now at a good value. I know we talked about it to start this segment. Mike, welcome back. We're talking.
Oh.
It's all good, man. It's all good. We're used to it in the district. It's not a show without some kind of tech issue.
I'm used to it.
We're used to it. We're like we just go like this, man. We just shake it off. We're back in. We're looking at mispriced offenses right now in the AFC division or conference with regards to drafts right now. Is there one that stands out? Dan mentioned the Jets. I said, based on our conversation and just what I'm seeing in draft rooms, the Steelers could definitely be underpriced right now. Who's an offense in the AFC that you think could be mispriced right now?
Well, it's tough to say the Raiders because they have 2 first-round picks. Like, the Raiders have been so bad, but Genty's late first, Bowers in FFPC is early first. I feel like if you knew who was going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns for even like 10 games, that could be worth a lot. But there are 4 guys. Now one of them's hurt. The more exciting rookie was the second rookie picked. And I don't know, like nobody really trusts that, and I don't blame anybody for not trusting that. But if you knew, and now Judkins and that whole thing, you have Judy, you have Njoku, Tillman's a little bit interesting. Sampson is the other running back, like Jerome Ford. If you knew who Cleveland was going to go to, that quarterback would be picked by the end of every draft. But nobody knows. Nobody trusts what they'll do. Like, can you imagine Joe Flacco playing in week 14 for that team based on what their chances are? The schedule's rough. So, I don't know. Man, if I knew who the Browns quarterback was going to be in December, I'd want to lean into that somehow.
Is there an offense you're fading in the AFC?
I mean, the Bills, I guess, only because I don't know who's getting the ball. I mean, that's not fading. It's not a philosophical, it's not a conscientious objection or anything like that, but I just don't end up with much of many Bills guys because it's just too random and obscure for fantasy. Anybody else I'm fading? I'm into the Colts. I just would love to know also who the quarterback is going to be, but I'm drafting plenty of Downs and Pittman. Even like early round 3, Jonathan Taylor is interesting. Tyler Warren is interesting, so I'm definitely not fading them. Tennessee, I can see it. Vegas, I can see it. Chargers, I don't really love it at their prices. And Denver, after RJ Harvey and I guess Sutton, who knows what they'll do. Like that coach is kind of diabolical when it comes to using different guys. So I don't have a lot of Denver because of that.
Dan?
Yeah, fair enough on Denver. I think probably in a lot of ways it's the Chargers for me. Just because there's nobody whose price I feel really great about. Even Omari and Hampton, way up in the 3rd round it's kind of, that's heady territory for me. Seems a little frothy, just because they don't throw to the running backs that much, and if you don't get the targets in there, it's tough to really get that huge running back season. So again, that's a place where I'm kind of, I feel like he is a great floor pick, but I'm not sure what kind of a ceiling there is there. He could be a back end RB1 for sure. I don't see him being a front end RB1 though, and so that's more what I'd like to get. But yeah, it's tough to say that there's anybody who's a really hard fade in the AFC for me.
I'm actually going to disagree. I think Hampton, if there's a Charger that I'm drafting, it is definitely Hampton, especially now with Harris kind of not being there earlier in the offseason. And with the Dolphins, I'm not saying a full fade. I actually really like Jalen Wright at his price and just what he offers, the upside he offers now that it's Mostert, right? That's gone. Yep. Yeah. I just feel like there's obviously room for him to come in and have a role with A-Chain there. And if there is ever an injury, I think he definitely can pop in fantasy. Let's continue rapid fire. Look at individual players here. Mike, your favorite sleeper in the AFC?
Individual players? Wow. I'll throw out a couple names as I think of them. Alec Pierce, who was efficient for Indianapolis. If Richardson starts and throws the long ball, I think Pierce could be somebody in best ball you're going to want. I mean, potentially at least. Could be 7-8 touchdowns. He wasn't bad. We were off him last year at this time, but he wasn't bad. Is it a sleeper to say, again, Sampson in Cleveland? I mean, his ADP is up 2 rounds already since the Judkins news. Maybe flip it upside down and then Judkins becomes a sleeper. But I think Sampson is interesting there. There's no Bengal here for me. I can't do Jermaine Burton. I can't with a beach towel out the back of his pants yesterday. I don't know what's going on with that guy. Mason Taylor a little bit for the Jets. Elijah Moore if you want to sort of predict a Curtis Samuel injury, I think, in Buffalo. I think you would need that. But he's 20th round or 18th round in underdog. So there's one more name. And actually, here's a guy I draft a lot now that I've been able to sort of think out loud. Keaton Mitchell would be somebody for me. I think he's super good. The offense is great. Henry is old. Justice Hill is Justice Hill. And if Mitchell is back to health and gets into a part-time role or even better, like a bigger role, I mean, he was great when he played 2 years ago. Or was it last year even before he got hurt? 2 years ago? I don't even know. But
Yeah,
that guy has my heart.
Yeah, I don't hate that. He did pop. I think I sent Jermaine Burton for Sam Darnold in a Superflex before last season. That definitely was one of my favorite trades for sure. Shout out to Nate Pilmer.
Oh, we're in a league with him. You roped me into a league with him. He took that deal.
Oh yeah, he's the commission. I mean, Nate, God bless him, man. He's anything for a trade and a draft. Anything for a trade.
He just got Genty for Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Yep.
It was Caleb Williams and a first. No, or no?
No, I thought it was straight up.
Oh yes, you are correct. That was another. Sorry, that's another draft I saw, or another trade I saw earlier today. You're right.
If you try hard enough, if you just keep banging on doors, selling encyclopedias hard enough, guess what happens sometimes?
Totally. Those Hoover vacuums.
Somebody opens the door. Somebody answers.
For sure. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. One of them we already talked about. Brashard Smith, I think, is a great sweeper in Kansas City. One we haven't talked about and hasn't gotten a ton of buzz as training camp's been going, but Pat Bryant, you're just not hearing a ton about him. He's, still hanging out, in the late wide receiver 60s range, so he's super cheap. And, but we're hearing good things out of training camp about him. He just hasn't caught on really with the fantasy community yet. So those would probably be the two that come to mind first for me. And then,
Dan, I'm glad I mentioned them earlier. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and then Gadsden, but I didn't steal your guy, did I?
No, I was just saying I'm glad I mentioned Bryant earlier in the show because you definitely took him away for this segment. But it's all good, brother. It's all good. I'm going to go, actually, you and Alec Pierce, Mike. I'm going to go Adonai Mitchell. I mean, he's free right now. He's literally the last pick in a lot of drafts for me. He was up there with the Worthies and the Odunzes in drafts last season going into the season. I'm higher on the Colts than most, not even as a fan, just as a fantasy player. I feel like there's a lot of upside there that can be unlocked if the right quarterback play gets there. And the other guy I was going to mention, obviously, was Bryant. Let's look at who's your highest owned player right now, Mike, in fantasy.
Tootin.
Who do you have the most exposure? Tootin? Oh, is that where it is? The 40%?
By 41.7, by a ton. I have a lot of Justin Fields. My top two tight ends are McBride and Bowers, which is kind of not how I want it, but it's what it is.
Nothing wrong with that.
Bryant might be my number one receiver. A lot of Jarquez Hunter, a lot of Brashard Smith, a lot of Braylon Allen, those rounds 14 through 16, 17 running backs that you just bet on hoping. Last year was brutal. The veterans changed teams just to show off and then stayed healthy and made us pay. But I'm not. I'm doubling down on young talent, especially in a running back draft that they said was non-Perel. So I'm here for it. We'll see what happens.
Dan, highest ownership.
Yeah, my higher ownership, J.J. McCarthy is my highest. Surprise, surprise. Out of the AFC, Brashard Smith, Hunter Henry, and of the yet to be decided, Keenan Allen, I've got way too much of as well.
We can't have too much Keenan Allen, Dan. Can't have too much
Keenan
Keenan. Same.
Yeah, I mean, he just keeps getting later and later. So it's like every time I'm like, okay, well, 13th round, I'll take him. Okay, a couple weeks later, 15th round, I'll take him. A couple weeks later, 16th round, I'll take him. 17th round, I'll take him. 18th round, I'll take him. It's just like it keeps going down. So okay, I'll keep adding to my, I'm gonna add to my bags there, and pretty soon I'm gonna have like pretty much a Honda Accord worth of Keenan Allen. So hope it works out.
Kansas City, Rice suspension, Brown hurt again today. If he can just sort of last on the market 2 more weeks, unless they have a deal done already, that's the dream for fantasy.
Oh man, Mike, my pants just came off.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Talking. We were talking about whipping him out earlier. Dan's almost there.
You're breaking up.
Yeah.
I'm looking at AJ Brown, Hunter Henry, and actually a sleeper I didn't mention that I should have mentioned is DJ Giddens. They're kind of tied as my top 3 most owned right now.
Taj Brooks.
Taj Brooks, a good one. There's nothing behind Chase. I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? I think people have Chase locked in, but what if there's no Chase? Then who comes in and takes that role? It's got to be Taj. Who else is there? Isn't Moss gone now?
He's not gone, but he's on the PUP list or one of those lists, NFI maybe, and his
I think
roster spot is a little bit tenuous.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the other one I've got a ton of that I drafted mostly early, like before he signed anywhere, was Nick Chubb. He was another one of those players I just kept taking late. So suddenly my Chubb shares have life.
Yeah, that could pay off for sure.
Yeah.
Is that because your pants are off, or is that? Sorry, I'll regret that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Before we close this thing off, do you have any bold predictions for the AFC, Mike?
I really like the idea of the Raiders. I mean, it's Pete Carroll, who is maybe 74 or older, but Chip Kelly with Carroll and Genty and a sure thing in Bowers and literally the most accurate quarterback in the NFL in the last 2 seasons. And Jacoby Myers, who's like also kind of a sure thing at his role. I don't know. I don't know if they can stop people, but I could see just Pete. Can't you picture Pete Carroll running up and down the sideline, just like a crazy person at his age? And there's Chip Kelly. They're going no huddle all the time, or it's RPOs, or it's wishbone, or just sort of random stuff. Just coming off of Ohio State, he's got players. And I don't know, they could get a little bit silly there, in maybe a good way for fantasy, or even sort of hold their own. Week 1 at New England is a very interesting game because maybe New England buries them like they're for real. Maybe the Raiders go in there like the Wildcat Dolphins did and just sort of screw with them and beat them. And Genty is, 23 for 130 and 2 in his first NFL game. And then now the pants are off.
There you go. Excellent. Mike and I become brothers in yet another way.
You guys are killing me.
In pants. I mean, let's wrap it up.
Wow. Dan, your AFC prediction.
I'm going to say that the AFC, I'm in a similar vein to Mike, but I'm going to say the AFC West is going to be like the NFC North was last year. I think it's going to be a fun division with a lot of fireworks. I see kind of Kansas City as being the Detroit Lions of the division. I see Denver as being the Vikings of the division. The Chargers being the Packers of the division, and then you got the Raiders, who are kind of the Bears of the division. I think there's kind of a few parallels in there as in style of play and what they're capable of offensively and defensively and all that. But I think it's going to be a really fun division. There's going to be a lot of shootouts, a lot of fun games, and I think Denver might be they're my dark horse to sneak in the AFC because of that defense. I think that defense is really, really good, and if the offense continues to play well, I think they're going to surprise some people.
I just think we don't see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's my AFC prediction.
Ooh.
Mike, this has been a blast, dude. I always love getting on with you and chatting it up, whether it's, AFC, NFC, it doesn't really matter. I know we'll be teaming up for a live draft at some point before the start of the season. Remind the peeps, I know you guys are on every Tuesday mornings. Is it the ADP? Yep. I usually watch it in the early afternoon I usually start it when I'm having lunch, your show. So I don't know, remind the people what time exactly, and anything else you have that the people can check you out on.
ADP Chasing is live Tuesday mornings at 10, which, not for the faint of heart, as you know, because if you, say today, recorded it, you would have stopped it 8 seconds into the show when my Wi-Fi dumped and then started again and then just put that out, like some other prominent fantasy podcast would do. But that's not our style. WGR 3 to 7 Monday through Friday on the Odyssey app, and then Sundays after Bills games. Today I had the great pleasure of interviewing Jim Lampley on our show here in Buffalo. That was really cool, talking about his career in boxing, and just like we are lucky to get some high-profile guests like that. Tomorrow, Aaron Schatz will be on at 4. We do a lot of fantasy on that show, too. So ADP Chasing, Adam and I do some deep end stuff here and there. We'll be in Kentucky for those drafts together coming up in less than a month. I'm not going to Vegas this year, but drafting in the Maine next week. Have done one already and have a couple more coming up. And, I'll just leave it at that because there's one I'm not supposed to spoil.
Nice.
We're gonna miss you in Vegas, brother.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Gotta make choices. And you can also find me at Kawagama Lake in Canada, starting on Thursday afternoon for 4 days.
So you guys, I'm telling you, you guys visit Canada more than I do, and I live here. So yeah, I live vicariously through you guys. Dan, what do you have coming up in the next little bit?
Yeah. So. Tomorrow is going to be the inaugural Fantasy Empire broadcast for this year. So
nice.
We got the gang back together. Looking forward to that. Got the show sheet put together, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're just we're all just so stoked up and ready to go that I don't know. It's probably going to be like a 3-hour episode or something for all I know. We may never stop talking. But I'm going to be doing that. I've got then let's see. That's pretty much going to be it for this week because I'm getting ready to go on another one of those Canadian canoe trips and see if I can get myself lost in the Canadian wilderness for a while. But then when I come back, it'll be hot and heavy with Goat District, of course, and in the Stack Hunters and Fantasy Empire. So you're going to have a hard time getting away from me basically if you are out on Spotify. You're going to probably want to delete the app because I'm just going to be all over it. And I apologize about that in advance. But and then I'll be in the drafting streets hot and heavy as well at that point. I've kind of wrapped up my drafts for now since I'll be off the grid, but getting back into them and looking forward to that.
Did you guys have pros versus Joes already?
Yeah.
Tonight's the last one.
We did. Yeah. So
Chili Peppers.
Did you do that what's that? Chili
we
Peppers?
were Chili Peppers 101 last Tuesday at 10. It was late like this.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did ours on Sunday. I think we were the fourth draft to go off. So how'd
it go?
It was an interesting draft. I thought it went pretty well. I did have one point where it was like, Bradley and I were talking, and Bradley was like, well, we really need a running back. We got Jordan Mason right here. You don't have to twist my arm too hard to take Jordan Mason. But at the same time, I'm going, you know what? Patrick Mahomes is still on the board. And I think that's the one pick that I really want to have back because, this was coming back in the 8th round. Mahomes was already a value there. I'm like, we needed a running back. Did we really need a running back? I think Mahomes would have been a great pick there. But overall, I thought we had a good team. It's really well balanced. So I feel good about it, but, we'll see how it plays. So you never know.
Never know.
How about you?
We were at the 1-1, and through round 5, we were getting rave reviews from Dave Turp. Like, this is the best team I've seen in the whole tournament. And then after 4 receivers and 1 running back, we picked Judy at the 6-12, and Farrell said, now they're just showing off. Because that was 5 receivers in the first 6 picks. But I think we might have caught up. Prescott, May, Andrews, Theo Johnson, Arroyo, Sinat will be interesting. Just got to sort of get lucky with those late round picks, and hopefully your chalk plays like chalk.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like the sound of that team.
Harrison at 4-12 was the big steal.
Ooh, yes, like that.
Dan, I'm glad to hear Nelson's holdout has ended with the Empire. You guys finally signed him. I'm happy to hear you guys are back tomorrow. Catch me next week while Dan is canoeing. Bradley and I will be teaming up for a baby T. So make sure you check that out on the channel. And for August, we just have a stacked guest list lined up. Dan and I will be doing some Big Gorillas drafts. I think we even have a main to draft. We've got Chad Schroeder, John Daigle, Jax Falcone, just to name a few of the guests that we have lined up for the month of August. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of it. Make sure you smash that like button. We appreciate all of you guys tuning in. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs, guys. We're like just at 950 right now, 949, something like that. So share the show with anyone that you're not in leagues with is much appreciated. And make sure you tune in. Have fun in those drafts. Make sure you crush those drafts, and we'll check you all later.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.